Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Other People's Parenting, where we read parenting books and review them for you. I'm Skylar Hurwitz, amateur parent, and this is my mom, Karen Quinn, New York Times bestselling author and founder of Habit Coach and Testing Mom. Hello, Mom.
Hi, Skylar.
How are you today?
I'm good, a little tired. You kept me up late last night.
Yes, I did. I did. We partied. We'll keep it vague.
Yes. I mean, I got to bed, it was 9:30. That's so late for me.
I know. That's late for me.
Is it? Yeah.
I love, again, we've spoken about this, 7 p.m. on the dot. I'm like, ooh.
So ready to get in bed.
It's been a long day.
Me too.
Oh my God. I know the sun is still blazing through my window, but
Right.
still,
I know.
I'm tired.
Me too.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
So this week is going to be a little different. Normally we cover nonfiction, instruction. I feel like they're a bit instructional, the books that we typically will cover.
Nonfiction parenting.
Yeah, like how to parent.
Right. Yes.
Whereas this season, there are going to be a couple episodes where we sort of address like different styles, different lifestyles where parenting can happen.
Mhm.
And last week we covered tradwives for our articles episode, and the response was interesting. So, we've been interested in this book. It's obviously a bestseller. If you
Should I
haven't
hold
heard of
it up?
Yes, Teen, hold it up.
Okay. For those who are watching, if you're watching, you can actually see this. If you're listening, you can't.
Yeah.
I am holding up the book Yesteryear.
For those of you listening.
If you can't see, her name is Carol Claire Burke.
Okay, a
that's
three-named
names.
diva. Okay, love that.
And it's Yesteryear.
Yesteryear.
It's been on the bestseller list, and it's people are talking about it.
People are talking about it specifically because there's a lot of speculation that this book was inspired heavily by Ballerina Farm, who we talked quite a bit about last week. If you missed last week's episode, Ballerina Farm is an influencer who has 9 children right now. Probably she'll eventually have more, because every week it seems as though there are just more children appearing on her farm. And she has a farm with her husband, who's the heir to the JetBlue fortune. Maybe he's got siblings, but he's involved
one of the kids.
Yeah, he's one
least.
of the kids.
Yes.
So they have money.
Mm-hmm.
And her Instagram basically shows her family, and her farm, her working farm that she has. She produces all sorts of products, but what she primarily is selling is this lifestyle of going back to the days of yore, when you had big families and you all farmed and worked together, and everyone's beautiful and everything is always gorgeous. And this book is a fictionalized, what felt to me like a version of her, but then it took a turn at the end.
Right. And then it becomes a little more Ruby Frankie.
Yes, exactly, which is another LDS influencer.
Right.
So clearly she was inspired by that world. And I understand why. I mean, it is a fascinating world, particularly pertaining to the women. The men, I'm kind of like, okay, you've seen one pastory crazy man who thinks he's the next prophet. You've seen them all. But the women are interesting. The women,
they're all over the place.
Yeah. And what's cool about this book is it's told in the first person. So you really get this inner monologue of this woman. And you realize, at least for this character, I can't speak for Ballerina Farm because I do not know her, although I do love her. This woman is miserable.
Right. She I wouldn't impose any of her thoughts necessarily on Ballerina Farms because we don't know anything.
It's a singular farm. She has one farm.
Oh, one farm. Okay, Ballerina Farm. Ballerina Farm. Okay. No, I mean, I know nothing about her as a person.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's lovely and very nice. And
she seems it.
But
who's to say?
Right. You never know. There were actually some quotes in an article that I read about her that sounded exactly like the character in Yesteryear. I'm going, wow, that sounds like exactly what Natalie would say.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's why I do think that she definitely, I agree, took inspiration there.
Yeah. I think it's hard to believe that any woman could live what, again, in reality is probably a rather difficult life, with managing 9 children, being pregnant every other year or every year in some cases.
Right.
While again, like running an enterprise all at once, it's a lot of work.
Right. It is. Yeah.
She must need a nap.
I'm sure she takes lots of I hope she
I
gets time to take naps,
When, though, is
I
the
don't know.
question.
When you have that many kids, I really don't know. But
Yeah.
why don't we talk a little bit about what the book is
Yes, give us
about?
an overview.
Yeah. Well, we were trying to figure out how to do this
Yeah.
because it's a little different since it's fiction.
Mhm.
And, I read tons of fiction. I
Yeah.
love
Also,
fiction.
spoilers abound. So if you wanna
Yes,
read this
yes.
book, maybe come back next week.
Go read it and then come back.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
curious to know your thoughts because, I mean, the discourse around this book is really
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah, and the thing
especially
is,
on Reddit.
when you read it oh, yes, on Reddit, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of there's all kinds of, threads on different topics on Reddit. I know I've read many of them.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's it's a book you can't put down.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. Even if you don't like the characters or anything, it
Mhm.
is a book that's hard to put down.
Yeah.
It just moves really fast and you wanna know what is going to happen.
Mhm.
So it tells a story, and I'm gonna give away plot points.
Yeah. So
But
again, spoilers.
yeah, these are plot points. When
If you're not gonna read this book, this will suffice.
then
You can
you'll
talk about
know
this
the
at parties.
basics, right? Okay, so it tells the story of Natalie Heller Mills, who is an ultra religious Harvard dropout, and she marries kind of the least intelligent son of a very wealthy politician. And with her father in law's money, they buy a farm in Idaho named Yesteryear Ranch. She has 6 kids. And while they're trying to figure out how to make a living, because the husband doesn't seem very smart, can't seem to do
They're
too much.
being subsidized, but it seems as though the money will eventually run out.
Right. So she's trying to figure out how to make money.
How to sustain this.
Exactly. And she starts posting about life on the ranch, and she becomes a successful tradwife influencer who gets millions of followers and she posts about her life at Yesteryear
One
Ranch.
quick thing, the way they got this farm, it was basically because her husband had absolutely no ambition, and
Mhm.
she was like, this is an incredibly unattractive quality in a man, so I'm gonna give him something to do.
Right.
And she pitches this idea to her father-in-law.
Yes.
And it is beneficial to him because he is running in the heartland. He's campaigning, and he's like, look at my son.
Yes, exactly.
A farmer.
He's a farmer, and this is
But
gonna
they're from like Montecito.
exactly. But this would help his ultimate presidential
Yeah.
campaign. So anyway, so she starts posting about life where they're growing their own food, tending to cows and chickens, raising children, selling products, and just modeling this particular brand of Christian womanhood. We don't know what kind exactly of Christian womanhood.
Vague Christian womanhood.
Vague Christianity.
Mhm.
That's right. But in reality, she's shopping for the same kind of groceries that she pretends she hates online.
Mhm.
She actually detests her husband.
I can see why. He seems like an absolute
Well,
bag of garbage.
he's not a very smart guy and supportive.
He's lazy.
Yeah.
He's just like deeply uninteresting.
He's really into the whole manosphere, and he's got all these fringe beliefs that
Oh my
he
God.
started to follow, online.
Conspiracies.
Right. So she's kind of like, not.
He thinks he believes that rats have overtaken New York City.
Right. Right. I didn't know that was a thing, but maybe it is.
I don't know. I'm
know.
not deeply involved in the manosphere, but I wouldn't be shocked. That sounds on brand.
Well, anyway, so they're living out on this ranch,
Mhm.
and she's very famous, and their whole life is, all around this lifestyle brand that they've started to create.
Mhm.
They bring on a producer. They bring on
Because initially she's doing everything on her own.
right, and then they start to bring on a little bit of help, and so
Yes.
she gets some babysitters, some
Mhm.
teachers to come on. So she
Mhm.
starts to expand her staff just a little
Mhm.
bit, get some help in the house.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, she wakes up one morning and she's been transported to 1855. There's no electricity, no modern appliances.
Mhm.
Suddenly, she's got like different children, not her
Uh-huh.
own children, and
Yeah.
she's got a husband who kind of looks like Caleb, her husband,
Mhm.
but he's older. So
Yeah.
she calls him Old Caleb, but
Yeah.
he's not Caleb, he's Old Caleb.
Yeah.
And she has no idea how she got there, and we
Mhm.
don't either. And the book goes back and forth in sort of little sections
Mhm.
between the 2020s, the time, now what's
Mhm.
happening and what got her to where she is
Yeah.
in her current life. and also life in an 1850s timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go back to her past, she's trying to figure out, how did I get here?
Yeah.
What is going on?
And then how do I, when they're in the past, she's like, how do I get out of here?
Yeah, how do I get out? How do I
Like,
get
she's
home?
convinced somebody might be filming a reality show, and she
Yes.
sort of is like, I feel like I'm being watched, but I can't really figure out what's going on.
She has no idea
Yeah.
what is going on.
Yeah.
And neither do we.
Yeah.
We have no idea either.
Mhm.
And so I'll just stop here for a minute and just say that the whole, for me, and
Mhm.
you can tell me what you thought, but the whole idea of this book to me sounded really interesting when I heard
Totally.
about it. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, wow, tradwife influencer goes
Mhm.
back in time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, oh, it's a time travel book. Yay!
You love a time travel book.
I do. I love time travel books. My
Take her away.
Oh, I have read every time travel book ever written.
Yeah.
That's fiction.
Teen will read a book about time travel from last week.
I will.
She's so excited.
Anytime it comes out, my favorite book of all time is called Time and Again by Jack Finney.
Oh, I thought it was The Time Traveler's Wife.
Nope.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I like Time and Again. That's my favorite one. But
Mhm.
I do like the Time Travelers. But
Yeah.
anyway, I love a time.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking, yay!
Yeah,
time
transport
travel.
us.
And the thing is, you don't know. It could be a time travel book when you're reading it. It's
Yeah,
possible.
It is
but
possible.
You don't know.
But you very quickly realize something is amiss. Something
Yes.
is going on.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
which is, I actually liked that. I really
Mhm.
liked that. I felt like you were kind of on the journey with her to
Yeah.
be like, what is happening?
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's right. But I at least thought if it wasn't going to be a time travel book, maybe it was going to be since it's a summer read, I thought it
Mhm.
would be satire. I thought it might be funny.
I think there were elements of satire for
Yeah,
this.
kind of, but
you know,
dark, very dark.
Mostly in her inner monologue.
Yeah,
it's
kind of.
like what she's putting out into the world versus how she really has an attitude of superiority
Oh yeah,
of everyone.
absolutely. For her whole life.
For her
Not-
whole life,
yeah.
even before she became a tradwife, when
Yes.
she was just a person. But I think that comes from being smart and sort of free thinking. I think it's easy to assume that she's an absolute nightmare,
Uh-huh.
but I think she might just be one of those people that like know too much. You know?
Well, and she's being brought up in a very Christian, traditional, conservative home.
Mhm. Which she seems to like the structure of.
She
She doesn't
does,
have an
yeah.
issue with that.
Right. Yes, she's never cut her hair. Her hair is
Mhm.
really, really long.
Mhm.
And yeah, and she embraces the clothing, the
Mhm.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, and as I said, I was very excited about this book.
Mhm.
But I have to say, as I was reading it, especially at first, now I will say I was reading it while recovering from surgery.
Yeah.
So I was in pain and I
Mhm.
kept falling asleep. So, but I was focused. I was trying to get it read.
Yeah.
And I was kind of disappointed because I have to say she was so unlikable, the main character.
Mhm.
And I found pretty much all the characters in the book were unlikable.
Hmm.
And I like to have some characters that I like and can root for in a
Uh-huh.
story. The only one I really liked was her youngest daughter in the new
Maeve.
Maeve in the old
Mhm.
timeline.
Yes.
I loved that little girl. She was
Yeah.
adorable.
She was adorable and
But
sweet as can
sweet.
be.
Yeah.
Really sincere. And you find things out about her later that you're like,
Oh, yeah, exactly. But so I was disappointed because Natalie was so mean. I mean,
she wasn't outwardly mean.
no, she
I think
her inner
but
thoughts.
But I liked that dichotomy because
Yeah.
I think imagine being a woman who spends so much time and energy covering how you feel, covering how
Right.
stupid you think everybody around you is, just based on the way they behave,
Mhm.
not from any. I don't think she was unjustified, especially feeling that way about her husband,
Right.
feeling that way about his family. I think she clearly loves her children, but she's
Does she?
she's cold.
Does she? She's so cold to her
She's
children.
cold.
Yeah, I mean, she's not loving at all. I didn't think with her kids. I thought
Mhm.
they were.
She wasn't like a natural mother.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But I think I got the sense that deep down she loved her kids. She just didn't really know how to show love in
Mm.
general.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Well, it's like, yeah. So I guess it was it was kind of negative. So I was like, I
Well, she
really
was
don't like her.
surrounded by such frustrating people.
Yes.
Which,
yes.
again, like day in and day out, if you are surrounded by people who
Mhm.
it just like, it seems like A, they're not listening to you. B, they think you can get the sense that they don't like you very much and they are tolerating you. That
Right.
will grate on anyone.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. It's hard to sometimes distinguish between her inner monologue and what is actually happening outside.
Yes.
But from outside, she doesn't really let people see her sweat.
Right. This is what's going on in her mind. And although on the Reddit boards, I have to say, on the Reddit boards.
On the Reddit
Is that what you
boards.
call them? The
I don't
Reddit
know. The
boards?
Reddit rooms.
The Reddit rooms.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some people were thinking maybe, because in a couple of cases, she actually said what was on her mind. It actually slipped out. And people were wondering if maybe that happened more than we knew. That maybe that's part of the reason why everyone hated her.
Maybe.
Because she was always like under her breath, like
Yeah,
her
muttering.
muttering mean things, you know,
Her
like
college roommates sounded insufferable.
well, they did, but they said they didn't like her because she was always saying mean things about them, and I'm thinking, well,
Well,
maybe
she wasn't initially. She just wasn't participating. She didn't drink, so
Right.
college was probably a really weird environment for her.
she was at Harvard.
Yeah,
right?
well,
And
she was at
good
Harvard.
school.
Yeah, a good school. But again, no 18-year-old is immune from being a freshman in college, regardless of where you go and how smart you are, except for her because she was brought up in a religious way and she wasn't really willing to break from that or experiment. She's like, listen, I'm here for school because I got a scholarship and I know it's a good school. I'm not here to participate in all of this tomfoolery.
Right, exactly. And so yeah, that's true. So we'll so what happens, just to take you as we go back and forth, because you know,
There's a lot of that. Every
There's
other chapter. you
every
switch
other chapter we're
timelines.
learning what her background is, and we find out how much more just how religious her family was. And her mom was a single mom. She has a sister she doesn't like very much. Her sister doesn't like her either.
Yeah.
And at Harvard, you know, she was really judged by all the other girls. I think she wanted them to accept her, but none of them did.
When it became clear that that just wasn't going to happen, she sort of was like, all right,
yeah,
if you can't beat them, I'm not joining these
yeah,
people.
she didn't have much to do with them. They were
Well,
drinking.
as far as she was concerned, they were beneath her.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And they felt it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that did not go well. She did have a college roommate named Rena who she just hated. And she had a grudge against her for the whole time and throughout the whole book.
Yes.
Just always, you know, belittling her even years later.
Yes.
When she was
And Rena is meant to represent the sort of liberal, modern woman who is like sexually liberated, although she does something that is terrible, I think, but we'll get to that. But she represents sort of the opposite of Natalie, somebody who doesn't seem to have much of a, not like a moral compass, because again, she's an 18-year-old kid in college, but she isn't as like, I don't know, like Natalie is very together and doesn't crack and isn't interested in like the stupidity of being young. Whereas Rena just desperately wants to be accepted by all of these other girls on their floor. And like, she's like, her desperation is palpable and Natalie finds it disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. And makes no bones about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but while she's in college, she meets Caleb. They end up getting married very soon thereafter, and right away she gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And you can see after she has her baby, she is suffering from postpartum depression. She can't connect to her baby. And a nurse tries to get her some help, get her to a psychologist, but her mother says to her, "Oh, just go for a jog." You know, and she's just given birth. And she does. She goes out and jogs, and it's crazy. I mean, the whole thing is just crazy.
And again, I think that's another example of like, okay, there is this world in which, you know, we are taking stigma away from certain things like that. And then there is this older world where I think women were just sort of told to grin and bear it. Go for a jog.
Right.
It's a metaphor.
That's what that's kind of what the mother thought. You're fine. You don't
go for a
You
jog.
don't need a psychologist.
You were just ripped in half.
You need
exercise. Go for a jog.
That'll help. Can you imagine? Right
no,
after
Mom,
you give birth.
I need a Quaalude.
All right.
Hi, I'm Zoe. I'm 11 years old now, but when I was just 4, my mom and I worked with Testing Mom to help me get ready for a really important test. I don't remember every little thing, but I do remember how much fun I had learning with them. It didn't feel scary or boring. It actually felt like a game most of the time. The tutors were really nice, especially Maddie, and they were really good at explaining things in a way that made sense to me even as a little kid. I learned how to think in new ways, solve problems, and stay calm when I was taking the test. And guess what? I did great and I got the highest score. I remember my mom was bragging to everyone we knew. I'm really glad we used Testing Mom, and if you're thinking about using them as well, I'd say go for it. They make learning fun and it really helps.
Now we get to the part I'm going to talk about the 1850s. When she wakes up, she's in the 1850s. And I thought that was the most interesting part because
it time travels.
The time travel. I love time travel. Are they time traveling or not? I was like, I don't know. I can't figure this out. It's very mysterious. You just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And she wakes up and she finds she's no longer pregnant. She has children.
Because in the original version, she
was
pregnant
pregnant
in her present day timeline.
Yes, she was. And then one day she wakes up, she's in 1850s and not pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And then she has those kids who aren't her kids exactly.
Yeah.
Old Caleb, who's not actually Caleb, but old Caleb. And then the oldest child, Mary, treats her like a child.
Yes.
And soon after she arrives, something happens. I don't remember what, but old Caleb, I guess she's not acting like a good wife.
Yeah.
And he slaps her in the face.
Well, she's acting crazy. She wakes up and she's like, where am I? And then she's like convinced that these people are her captors.
Right.
And so she keeps trying to escape.
And he slaps her.
Yeah. He's like, get a hold of yourself.
And he beats her.
Yeah.
And so she ends up, I think Mary ends up stitching up her face with just thread.
No, that was her foot.
That was her foot?
So she tries to escape and her foot gets stuck in a trap.
A bear trap.
A bear trap.
Right. And that's when Mary stitches her
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So with thread, a needle and thread, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, she just can't figure out what's happening. Like, and she's like, how did I get here? Is it time travel? Is she, and these are some of her theories. Is she on a reality TV show? Was she kidnapped and brought here? Is she mentally ill and delusional? I don't think she thinks that, but we think that.
Yeah.
Is this a test from God? She thinks that. She thinks that's probably the best explanation.
Yeah.
Naturally. Right. Has there been a civil war and they're just living off the grid?
Yeah.
And that's why they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, she's exploring all these possibilities. And at one point, she finds on the ground a nub that she picks up and she recognizes.
It looks like a boom cover for a microphone. So she's like, interesting.
Reality show.
Yeah.
But then she starts thinking, but some of the things that had happened to her by then, the beating up by her husband, getting caught in the bear trap.
She's like, how far will they let this go on reality
Would
TV?
they
would probably let a man hit a woman. Why not?
Yeah, and then she thinks, probably.
I buy it.
By then she's been raped even by her husband.
Yes.
And so but she thinks, they might. Maybe that's what's happened.
Yeah, maybe this is just the world we're in today. I mean, they're always pushing it further and further.
Yeah, but eventually when she's in the 1850s, she does kind of give up and tries to mother those kids, but she's not very good and she keeps losing it. And,
she doesn't have a lot of patience. And it seems as though these sort of episodes happen often enough that the kids are used to them and they kind of like behave as if she's being completely normal when she's constantly saying, I've been kidnapped. And I imagine that is, I think if you have a parent dealing with delusions and mental illness, at a certain point, you probably do eventually have to just say, you know what, this will pass for the time being. We'll just act like everything's normal, because what else do you do as a kid?
They kind of, sometimes they play along.
They seem resigned.
Yeah, they just, sometimes they try to get her back to reality. And whenever she says, I need to leave, I don't belong here.
No one reacts.
They're like, oh yeah, this is home. They ignore her.
Yeah.
It's just.
It's as if she has dementia.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah.
Very, very strange. And okay, so now let me get to the part where This is a big spoiler. So if you don't want to know why she's in the 1850s,
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of get there here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll talk about the book. Okay, so what happens is towards the end of the modern day timeline, Natalie and Caleb become involved in a very big scandal.
Yes.
So Caleb has an affair with Shannon, who's their producer.
Who, again, is another woman that represents these sort of ultra-liberal, empowered in quotations as far as Natalie is concerned. Because her whole theory is like, listen, how empowered can you possibly be if you're working 80 hours a week and you're miserable and you don't have a family? And like, which again, I think that's an important thing to consider. That's what Natalie thinks. And Shannon sort of looks at Natalie at first as someone, it's hard to know what her initial motivation is, because she shows up and speaks very highly of Natalie and is like, listen, my friends and I, from NYU love what you're doing and think that you're really sticking it to the man by not participating in this corporate world and sort of taking a step back and saying, well, this is what's important to me, so I'm doing it. But as you read more, you wonder, was that true, or was this an ulterior motive to sort of get in and expose her?
Right. Yeah.
And Shannon starts to do all sorts of things, like gives her daughter access to a phone when it's very clear, her preteen daughter. Secretly.
Right.
Gives her access to a phone and does all these other sort of like secret, manipulative, weird things.
I knew that Shannon was bad news from the beginning.
Yeah.
I could tell.
Totally.
I totally knew that she was in there for bad reasons.
And Natalie starts to notice her husband, Caleb, getting really close to Shannon. And she's like, this is weird. But to be totally honest, I don't care because I don't really care about Caleb. But I'm watching this because, again, Caleb is sort of like the key to the empire. He is sort of the access to the money that keeps this whole charade going.
Charade?
Charade.
That's kind
of... Charade. Who cares?
Oh, that's just, tomato.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not us?
I guess. Okay.
But then Shannon, she and Caleb, her husband, start an affair.
Right.
And when Natalie finds out, she is livid for two reasons. One, because she knows Caleb is a moron. But she thinks to herself, how stupid can you possibly be? You employ this person.
Right.
You have now opened both of us up to lawsuits, to exposés, to all, not to mention, she's like, cheating on me is like the least of my worries at this point. It is all of what you have now opened us up to.
She's very pragmatic.
She's very pragmatic.
Yeah, right.
She's like, I don't care. Cheat on me all you want, but do it discreetly. Do it with some woman from the village.
Right.
Not
Shannon. Not someone who works for us.
Yeah. Who works for us, who also, again, has access to all of her social media accounts, who could block her out at any moment, who knows all of this intimate thing, all of this intimate knowledge about her family, how it works, the kind of staff they employ, that really contradicts the image that she has so carefully curated online.
Exactly. She knows it's bad news, so she goes and confronts Shannon.
Which, girl, rightfully so.
Right. Like, I knew, and she does confront her.
Yeah.
And they end up, and actually, Caleb does tell her that he has fallen in love with Shannon and that they're going to run away together and live in Brooklyn. And that's after all this time when he's been like, but the rats in New York City.
The manosphere.
Right.
Yeah. It's
like,
just like, oh my God.
It's a hellhole, New York City. But
he's
now
like,
he wants
Shannon
to live
actually told me that it wasn't really like that. He's like, did you know that, Natalie? Natalie's like, of course I knew that. You stupid idiot.
I know, but he's
Where do
mad
you
at
find
her.
this?
He's mad at Natalie. Well, why didn't you tell me?
Like, because you were going to listen. You're online 12 hours a day reading these stupid conspiracies, believing every last one of them. Like, I didn't think you were capable of nuance.
Well, while Natalie is confronting Shannon, they get into a physical altercation.
Yeah.
And during the altercation, somehow, Shannon's pants come down. I don't know how that happened. But
there's a struggle because Natalie's trying to strangle her.
Yeah, she is trying to strangle
her. And I guess Shannon was like mid getting dressed or something.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But the pants come off. So
yeah.
But that's relevant because later she accuses Natalie being a lesbian because
Yeah.
that happened. And
Yeah.
which in that
And of
world is
assault.
very bad.
Yes, which again, no one really cares about the physical assault. They're like, she's a lesbian.
Right, because in Natalie's world, where all of her followers are very, very conservative, and also in the
Not all, but
father-in-law's, many of them
Mhm.
are, and in the father-in-law's world, where he's running for president, and he has captured the hearts and minds of the, middle America and also very conservative
Yeah.
thinkers.
Yes.
That is, I guess, not allowed, or that's not.
I guess it's just looked at as like,
down on.
yeah.
And so,
oh my God.
anyway, so that they say is like even, when that later.
That's the true scandal.
That's the big scandal.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is a big scandal.
Mhm.
And I don't know specifically, I can't remember
Mhm.
specifically, but there's a big scandal.
Mhm.
And it's at that time, and we find this out later,
Mhm.
that Natalie and Caleb, Natalie loses all of her followers. People, because the scandal comes out.
Well, it's not
Shannon-
actually because of this scandal. It's because Shannon then goes on like the equivalent of 2020 or some
television show.
or like a Barbara Walters-esque thing
Special.
and gives an interview.
Right.
And what I felt really misrepresented the situation.
Well, yeah.
And again, like, not to say again, I don't, obviously this is a fictional person, but it's so hard to know what someone's true experience was. But I got the feeling that Shannon was out to take Natalie down at any cost.
Yes.
And I think when the implication was made that this was some sort of like pseudo-sexual thing,
yeah.
I don't think that Shannon made that, but she also did not deny it. And she didn't
Right.
say, no, that's not what this was about. She also wasn't honest about what went on between her and Caleb
No, she
in
didn't.
this interview. She
didn't-
really obscured it.
Right.
And again, she misrepresented who she was, where she came from. She was a woman from Brooklyn who came from money. It wasn't like she was just some, girl off the Greyhound bus.
But they said that they kind of showed her that they said she was in school and that, Natalie had come and, got taken her out of school to become the producer.
Which is not true. She sought Natalie out.
She sought Natalie out. Yeah.
She really misrepresented the situation in the interest of making herself look better and more credible and more
Right.
like a victim.
Exactly. And she, and she pretended like, she had been assaulted, but it was both an assault, but it was also
It was an assault on her life. It was not a sexual assault.
It wasn't really sexual.
No,
but,
I don't think
No,
it was
I don't think
sexual at all. I think that served her narrative so that
Right.
she pushed that. But I
Uh-huh.
think for Natalie, it was just this moment of blind rage
Uh-huh.
because I think she had considered firing Shannon a number of times throughout their
Mhm.
tenure and, decided against it ultimately because of this justification of like, well, she makes my content so much better. And in this world, your content can't get worse.
Right.
It can't. That will cost you. And
Yeah.
she's like, above all else, I am a business person and I recognize what she brings to my business.
Right. And she kept her.
Yeah, and she kept her
Uh-huh.
against her better judgment.
Right. And I knew from the beginning. But anyway,
Shannon's
I
a
couldn't
rat.
tell her because it was a book.
Yeah, Shannon's a rat. She's gonna snitch you out.
She is, and she was.
And
And
she
anyway,
was.
so the scandal that happened, and so both Natalie loses her business because
Mhm.
all her followers just abandon her,
Mhm.
and the father-in-law loses the election because
There's one point where she and Caleb, after this all comes out from the interview,
Mhm.
Caleb's like, she's like, he's probably going to make you divorce me and all this stuff. He's like, no, he wants to kill you.
Oh,
He
right,
wants
the
to
father,
kill you.
the
Yeah, and
father-in-law.
make it look like an accident. That's
Right.
what he wants. So I don't know what to tell you. Like and at that point, obviously, Caleb realizes, oh, I'm not moving to New York with Shannon. She
Yeah.
was playing me.
Right. He finally gets it. And so maybe
Moron.
that's what maybe gets them to decide to do this. They
Yes.
decide, well, we're going to just go live back on our ranch, but we are going to live like it's the 1850s.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to prove to people that I am the real deal. And I'm going to eliminate electricity from my house. I am not going to be on social media. We are going to get these pioneer clothes and all of our food is going to be from the land. And we're going to be the real deal.
And that's what they go back to do.
I discovered Testing Mom while living abroad in Abu Dhabi. At the time, my older daughter was just 3 years old, and we knew we'd be moving back to New York City the following year. That meant preparing her for the New York City Gifted and Talented test, something I wasn't even sure how to begin tackling from overseas. A quick Google search led me to Testing Mom, and within minutes I had access to an incredible library of test prep materials. For the next 9 months, we committed to just 20 minutes a day, consistently working through the content. That simple routine paid off. She scored in the 99th percentile, exactly what we had hoped for. What we didn't realize at the time, though, is that testing is only part of the process. After the exam came a lottery system, and unfortunately, we weren't assigned to the citywide G&T school we were aiming for. Still, the experience with Testing Mom was so positive, I felt compelled to reach out and share my story. I sent a message to the founders, shared my background and resume, and actually asked for a job. That one message turned into an opportunity. I began writing test prep materials for them, which eventually led to helping launch an in-person tutoring center. Years later, when it was time for my younger daughter to take the same test, we returned to the very same prep materials. And once again, we got that 99th percentile score. Testing Mom wasn't just a test prep solution for us. It became part of our family story.
So they go back to do that. And so when we see her in the 1850s, what's happened is she's actually in the future after her successful online life collapsed. And the children that we meet in the past are her own children that were born later.
Yes.
After they decided to live that way. And her original children had ended up leaving and going to live with Natalie's mother. And soon after, at some point after they began living this way, Natalie had some kind of psychotic break. And so when she wakes up in the 1850s, she seems to have forgotten how she even got there.
Yeah.
So she kind of remembers her one life that was the online life. And then suddenly she's in the 1850s and she just doesn't realize how she even got there.
Yeah.
And so when she starts having this break, Caleb puts Mary in charge of Natalie and the kids. And Mary is like 13 or something.
Yeah.
She's young. And they drug her whenever they can get their hands on drugs. I guess it's not easy.
Yeah.
But they try to drug her.
There is secretly, so her two older sons that you meet in the quote unquote present timeline live just down the road.
Right.
And they have to tell Natalie, listen, like if you try and escape again, like there's traps all over the woods. You're gonna get hurt again.
Yeah.
Which isn't true.
Right.
But they understand that like it's sort of like they have to continue to build this fantasy for her because in their minds, it's like this is really the only way to keep her safe.
Right.
You know, if she goes out and discovers that the rest of the world really is what she thought it was, she's going to probably lose it even more.
Right, because she has lost it.
She has lost it. She has lost the plot.
And they, so they're drugging her. Caleb has some sort of shed or little building that he goes to every day. What Natalie thinks he's out farming, but instead he's actually going to the shed and he's online.
Where her two older sons are.
Right.
And they basically facilitate a lot of the things, like they bring them vegetables and all this stuff that she thinks he's going out and getting and foraging for and hunting for.
Exactly.
It's from Whole Foods.
It's all from, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so later what happens is Clementine, who was the oldest daughter from the original family.
The preteen that Shannon gave the cell phone to.
That gave the cell phone to, and then she left and is living with Natalie's mother. She grows up, so it's years later, and she comes back with a warrant to take the kids away, the new kids that Natalie has had, to take them away from her. I guess she has, this whole thing was a little crazy because I don't think you get a warrant to take kids away.
Well, you don't, civilians don't get warrants.
Right.
If something like this were to really happen, police departments
or
would be
social
involved.
services or something.
Well, everybody, because you are removing children from a home that they live in and removing them from their parents, who again could be pretty unpredictable. You don't know if they have guns. You don't know what this could drive the parents to do.
Right. But in this case, it
Clementine shows up with a piece of paper.
So,
and it's like, I'm taking the kids.
And she takes the kids and they all
they
drive
just
away.
give them to her.
And she's like, I guess there's nothing we can do. And they go away. And then there's, in an epilogue, what we learn is that it's a few years later, Mary, the daughter, writes a book about her experience being brought up in the fake 1850s. And in that, she forgives Natalie. Shannon tells Clementine, because
Mhm.
Clementine's in touch with Shannon, the
I'd be so
producer.
pissed if I were
I know.
Natalie.
Not to go too hard on Natalie.
I hate her. That is the most patronizing, condescending
yeah.
thing you can
Well,
just go easy on her.
yeah, she's messed
If
up.
this were my life,
Anyway.
Shannon, you'd be at the bottom of an ocean.
And Natalie has an interview with Rena, her old college roommate, who is now a journalist. And we
Mhm.
discover that Natalie is now in jail for 30 years for child abuse.
This is where the Ruby Frankie story comes into play.
Yeah, which is Ruby Frankie was given 4 to 30 years in
she
prison.
deserves every last second of that.
But I kind of felt like I don't know, like I feel like it really, if I were Natalie's lawyers, I would say, you know, first of all, she did have a psychotic break.
Yeah.
They were drugging her. I'm not saying she was innocent, but I think there were some mitigating
one of the
factors.
questions I think that the author is asking us to consider is, you know, if you were in this woman's position, universally beloved and put on such a pedestal, and then just so swiftly cut down, you know, could you cope with that?
Right.
Do you think you would have been able to handle life any differently afterwards? Obviously not necessarily to the extent of like absconding to the 1850s, but like psychologically, I don't think people are really built for these sort of, you know, buildups and takedowns that the internet is capable of doing to us.
Yeah, you could, and that is what happened to her. She did lose it mentally. But, you know, a lot of people these days, this happens to. I mean, you know, like I think Ruby Frankie, I don't know much about her.
Well, the Ruby Frankie story is really sad. I mean,
well, it is. It's
she
horrible.
basically got involved with this woman who was behaving as some sort of prophet. She was a therapist for the LDS community where they were in Utah. And she was basically convincing all these women that their husbands were abusive pedophiles and that they needed to like take their families away, and was basically creating these huge wedges between all of these families. And for whatever reason, because she was sanctioned by the church, people continued to go see her. Ruby Frankie, who had a YouTube channel that was very successful, this woman sort of glommed onto her and saw a vehicle to become wealthier and more
famous
known.
herself. Yeah.
And basically like brainwashed her and ended up horribly abusing Ruby Frankie's children.
Right.
And Ruby Frankie's estranged husband had no idea what was going on. The story is really dark. Interesting, worth watching, because again, it sort of asked this question like, you know, what does it take to break a person? And like, I'm sure Ruby Frankie's had some time to reflect and been like, oh my God, how did I let this happen? But this does happen to people.
I hope she has. I mean,
Psyches are fragile, way more fragile than I think we are willing to consider.
Right. Well, you know, when I read this book, I was going to say there were so many themes in this book, and it was almost too much. I felt like way too much. We're talking about parenting. We're talking about tradwives, misogyny, religion, gender roles, the manosphere, internet fringe theory.
It was like everything.
Women versus women, working women versus stay-at-home women, queer baiting. I mean, it was like everything.
Yeah.
And it was almost like nothing was quite resolved. And so you know, I think you can take this book and discuss it in so many different ways.
Totally.
You know, as to what was the author even trying to say, or was she trying to say anything? I don't know if she has a message or if she just wants you to get your own
Honestly,
message.
the message I received is that womanhood is miserable any way you slice it.
It's hard. It's really hard to be a wife and mother.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's like, you know, I thought, could she be saying we can really ruin our lives when we try to live for an audience of strangers like Natalie did?
Super fair.
You know, or women, look at how women are hurt when they live under the rule of extreme religious strictures, like certain Christian groups or Hasidic Jews or Muslims or Amish. You know, you could pick any group.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's about how children suffer when they're having to live online. That's not a good thing either.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the was there a main point? What do you think?
I don't know. I think what she was trying to say is, you know, again, any way of being a woman in this world today, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak one way or another. You're either going to be a woman who works constantly, and if she has a family, barely sees them, can barely participate in that, or you sort of decide, okay, that's not the life I want. But then you're setting yourself up for a number of other things, like we talked about last week, where if you are a partner in a marriage that isn't bringing in income, you are unfortunately subject to this dynamic where you're having to ask for things you need. You don't really have the same level of autonomy and freedom in the relationship as the other partner.
Right.
So there are things you can take and things you can give either way. And it's just sort of like, I don't know, pick your poison, ladies.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I mean, this hasn't been my personal experience, but again, I think for the purposes of this book, she needed to draw such a huge, just two different realities. But, the liberal, college educated, hyper progressive woman and the Christian traditional wife, there's so many women in between that.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Womanhood is a spectrum.
It is a spectrum. That's right. And
motherhood is a spectrum.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because I think a lot of times if you're a working woman, I know how I used to feel this way. Sometimes I would think, God, I would give anything to just stay at home with my kids and not have to go to work and face all that stuff at work.
Yeah.
But then I know if you're a woman who stays home, you kind of feel like, God, I wish I could just get dressed and leave, take a break, because work always felt easier for me than being home with kids.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of working dads could hear.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to be home with your kids.
Yeah.
It's so much work.
I mean, it's wonderful, but it is so much work, and it's work that just doesn't end.
Right.
It's like you go to your office at 8, you come back at 6, and you're off for 10, 12 hours.
Yes.
As a parent, as a primary parent, you are never truly off.
Right. Exactly. That's right. And I mean, so it is interesting that I kind of see why that tradwife trend is so big, because it's such an escape somehow for a lot of people. Even if whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you might look at that and you might say, gosh, look how beautifully she does that and how wonderful her life looks, because she's kind of a rich tradwife. She's got a big ranch and whatever.
Yeah. And she's got staff.
Right.
She's got support. And I think, again, that is really the biggest difference. It's like these women who are stay-at-home moms who truly are doing everything themselves and don't have the resources to pay for support, or are living far from their families, who don't have that kind of support. And there's a difference. One is an enterprise, one is a person.
Right.
You know? And it's simply just, it's hard to compare the two.
Right. No, it's true. It's a very different life than most women live. Well, I want to ask you, did you see the ending coming in any way? Did you figure it out?
No, I didn't. I was trying to figure it out along with everybody else. I was like, what the hell could be going on here?
Me too. I could not figure it out. I didn't know.
One thing I saw on Reddit was everyone's like, how did she not know she was older? Didn't she see a mirror? No, girl. There were not mirrors in the 1850s.
No, I don't think there were.
You couldn't just use glass like that. Glass was scarce.
Right.
You couldn't just be putting mirrors up in your house.
And there was no phone that you could take a picture of yourself.
Exactly. She had no idea what she looked like.
I mean, I guess you could look at your hands and you would know that.
That said, she also was really young when the story started. So, she could continue to have so many kids. Because, by the time her life fell apart, she was maybe 30.
Well, she was 50 by the end of the book. She was about 50 by the end of the book. Yeah. She thought she was pregnant again at the very end of the book, remember?
Yeah.
And they said, no.
That's not possible.
You're not.
Sorry.
Right.
It reminds me of that episode of Real Housewives of New York when Sonia and Ramona are in the bathroom at it's probably Sonia's townhouse. And Ramona is 55 at this point. She's like, Sonia, I have to take a test. I could be pregnant, Sonia. I could be. I haven't had my period. And it's like, Ramona, has no one told you?
Menopause.
And so they're wasted taking a pregnancy test in the bathroom. She's like, I could be having another baby. It's like, girl,
no,
call a doctor.
I knew you were going to find a way to bring in the housewives.
I can bring the housewives anywhere. Anywhere, anytime, any day.
I know you can. Well, I like that because there's always a connection.
There's
to
always a
housewives.
connection to the housewives.
That's right.
That's the world we're in these
That
days.
is true. That is true.
But I loved the book. I will say I was
Mhm.
surprised by it. I was interested the whole time. I really was riveted. And I enjoyed how mean and gnarly she was.
Oh, you did.
I did because, I think there's a small part of every woman who, like, if we could really just say everything we thought all
Uh-huh.
the time, like, there are some tremendously frustrating people in this world
Right.
who I think there's this expectation as women that we're just gonna not go there.
We're nice. We're nice.
We're
Women-
polite because it is a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
If I were to start every fight that presented itself to me,
That's true.
I would be dead.
Right. That's true.
So
That's true.
you learn early on as a woman, and in any situation where it is literally about your physical survival or your social survival, you just learn to bite your tongue.
Yeah.
And I had a
That's
lot of
true.
fun with a lot of the things she was thinking.
And that was the Reddit forum that I wanted to
Mhm.
just bring that back one more time
Back
because
to Reddit.
because she said the Reddit forum was
Mhm.
saying, because I didn't want to say before because I hadn't said about the
Yeah.
mental illness.
Yeah.
But the Reddit people were saying, maybe all those inner monologue thoughts, she was blurting them out.
Mhm.
And that was, part of her, her break was, that she just said the things that were on her mind. Like
Mhm.
if you read the book thinking it's not all in her head, she's saying those things and,
Mhm.
that's how people know she's just lost
Yeah,
it.
because her mom accuses her of being cruel
Mean
throughout the book.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just wonder because it's kind of like maybe it's just a feeling her mom is experiencing.
Yeah.
But you're right. Maybe she is.
She's
really
always telling her,
saying
be
it.
nice, be
Yeah.
nice.
And listen, I understand why people don't just like say the worst things that come to their mind. I understand why. Obviously, we live in a society and
Uh-huh.
we can't be doing that. But
Right.
man, there are moments as a woman where I'm like, it would feel so good to give you a what for.
A what for? That's right. I had to tell Skylar what a what for was
Yes,
the other day.
I've never heard
She's
it.
never heard
man,
it.
do I love that expression.
Oh, yeah. When
I'm gonna
you
give you a what for.
That's right. In my day, we gave people what fors all the time. In my day.
Yeah. Back when everybody wasn't armed.
That's right.
With a camera phone.
Exactly. With a phone. That's true.
To expose you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyway,
but
but
I liked it.
I
liked
liked
this
it
book.
too. I liked it too.
Yeah.
I liked it. It wasn't my favorite book of all. I
Mhm.
mean, I liked it. I didn't love it, but
Mhm.
it was interesting.
It was interesting.
Yes, it was.
And it left you thinking. There are a lot of questions you can consider after
Yeah.
you finish this book.
Exactly.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.